Okay, hello. Today is November 8th, 2022, and we'll talk about not three architects as it is written here, but four architects. Four architects were born on November 8th. But let's begin with the first three ones, and we'll start with Gaetano Pesce, the Italian architect who is our contemporary. He is still alive. Let's see, he's 80 something. This is the man. Interesting photograph of an interesting creator. He's not just an architect, but a designer, an artist, a provocateur in a way. He was also teaching. Well, let's read a little bit about Gaetano. So Gaetano Pesce, you see, born November 8th in 1939, so he's 83 years old today. He's an Italian architect and the design pioneer of the 20th century. Mr. Pesce was born in La Spezia in 1939, and he grew up in Padua and Florence. During his 50-year career, Mr. Pesce has worked as an architect, urban planner, and industrial designer. His outlook is considered broad and humanistic, and his work is characterized by an inventive use of color and materials, asserting connections between the individual and society through art, architecture, and design to reappraise mid-20th century modern life. Mr. Pesce studied architecture at the University of Venice with such notable teachers as Carlo Scarpa and Ernesto Rogers. Between 1958 and 1963, Mr. Pesce participated in Gruppo N, an early collective concerned with programmed art patterned after the Bauhaus. Since the 1960s, Gaetano Pesce has been known to relate art to the design of interiors, products, and architecture. The New York Times critic Herbert Muschamp, whom I knew personally, I will tell you one day more about him, described Mr. Pesce as the architectural equivalent of a brainstorm. Well, I would say this is a compliment. During his career that spans 4 decades with commissions in architecture, urban planning, interior exhibition, and industrial design, Gaetano Pesce, the architect and designer, has conceived public and private projects in the United States, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. He didn't build so much in architecture, but he did many things. In all his work, he expresses his guiding principle that modernism is less a style than a method for interpreting the present and hinting at the future in which individuality is preserved and celebrated. He taught architecture at the Institut d'Architecture et d'Études Urbaines in Strasbourg, France, for 28 years, at the Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, at the Domus Academy in Milan, at the Polytechnic of Hong Kong, at the Architectural School of Sao Paulo, and at the Cooper Union in New York City, where he has made his home, that is in New York City, since 1980, after living in Venice, London, Helsinki, and Paris. Drawings. He's really a very versatile and interesting creator. Self-portrait, Industrial Skins, 1983, in polychrome urethane. Well, I guess some other architects can paint too and can draw, maybe even contemplate themselves in self-portraits. But as you will see, Gaetano did many things, and they're all enticing and provocative. Omaggio a tutte le Madonne del mondo, 2016. Well, that person there is not him, it's just helper to hold the interesting artwork. Gaetano, Pesce. Well, architectural magazines like Domus published his work all the time. And, I like these architects who are doing other things as well, and they are difficult to pin down. As Herbert Mushom said, it's the equivalent of a brainstorm, because he did many things, and this kept him open to all kinds of experiments. Transparency, 2016. So he was not obsessed only by the Madonna, but also by religious themes like this one. He was and he is an unconventional spirit. You might like his work, you might not like his work. It's not someone who is caressing your expectations. Quite the opposite. He's provocative, but I think he is refreshing exactly because he's thinking and acting out of the box. Donna con titolo, detail, 2016. Another Donna. I like the fact that he problematized the artwork in relationship with a frame. So this is a very, rather unique or unconventional way of framing the artwork by connecting it with wires to the frames. He also uses, modern materials or contemporary materials or industrial materials like plastics. Yeah, he continuously experiments. L'ospedale fa riflettere sul passato, 2016. Oh, it's a large piece, if we consider the silhouette of that young man there. Leonardo diceva che in futuro la gente non avrebbe. Anyway, the Italian is nice. Unfortunately, I do not know it, but we can look at the work. I go rather quickly because we will talk about 4 architects today, and the speed is important. Design. He designed many things. Indeterminazione elastica, 1965. Metal, wood, and magnet. Plaster, enamel, and iron from 1969. Manodidio ashtray. Now this one is rather morbid. He has elements of occasional morbidity. He also has moments of sensuality. His art is, he has certain levels of complexity. He says yes to life, but maybe he also says yes in a way to death, or in this case, he says no, but the no is well, no in general is probably uncomfortable. In this case is doubly so, if I can say so. So those who smoke probably will throw the cigarette away looking at this image. Vacuum compressed ABC. I don't know what ABS is. But we see again, the redness of blood. And so there are ominous meanings in some of his works. Flexible polyurethane foam, 1969. Again, in the 60s, he was rather, I don't know, did he suffer at that time? I mean, the last three artworks show blood coming out of various parts of the body. Moloch lamp, 1970, light alloy, iron, ABS, and glass. Now, this is quite a lamp, no? I mean, it's actually an installation in a way, because that kind of lamp, a smaller size, can be found easily, but he made it a very large Moloch lamp. I don't know why it is called so. With a high sense of theatrics, he collaborated. I think I'll show some images also where he was involved also with the theater. Omaggio alla verdetà di consume. Look how many materials: virgin wax, aluminum, wood, and hard polyurethane made from ground rigid integral, 1971. He designed pieces of furniture, not very different. Of course, this is an artwork, although I included it in the section with the, design. But his work is in between design and art, sometimes even architecture. Carenza, wooden rigid polyurethane. He likes, this is a library, I mean, a shelving system, which seems to work to hold those books. The New Domestic Landscape, Italy, 1972. This was a stage design for a theater, for a play, I guess. Gaetano Pesce. But I think, this kind of architect also is involved in stage design, in artworks, exhibitions, installations. They have an exciting life. They are not bureaucrats. They are not. They have an artistic activity. So I think this keeps them, alive and curious. And it's a suggestion, I think, for other architects to do this sort of thing, if possible. Golgotha suit, 1972, table, bricks of glass, foam, and polyester resin. Then chair, the fiberglass and polyester resin. Casina Arca table, bricks of glass, foam, and polyester. Again, and here it is. It's, again, a play, I imagine, but he designed the, the physical elements, the chairs and the table. Interesting chairs. I mean, I don't know how solid they are and how, usable they are, but aesthetically they are enticing. Reg armchair, 1972, regs and natural rubber. Look at this. I think it's okay, and it's sustainable. It's made from, remnants of materials. Lots of materials, that is. This one as well. It's some kind of a, opulent, depressed armchair. I say depressed because I think he had this, I think he had some kind of duality within. He has, that is, we saw those artworks with the blood, coming out of certain parts of the body. he is not just a man who sees everything in pink and in optimistic tones or overtones. Le futur est peut-être passé. The future is maybe gone or past. 1975, iron, bronze, cement, and lead. Stage design again, or an installation. Sit down series, 1975. This is an almost acceptable sofa. And almost acceptable, well, more than almost. They are, you know, they are art pieces, but they could function as armchairs, or these ones as well. And again, a stage design or some kind of an installation with his sitting designs. Portrait chair, 1984. Now, yes, as the name says, there is already, you know, someone sitting on the chair. I mean, there is at least a face inscribed on the back of the highly artistic chair. Armchair, wool felt impregnated with polyester, a prototype wool felt impregnated. Anyway, he felt it, 1986. He designed many of these, and the Domus magazine used to publish them all the time. Look at this one. I find it very interesting, you know, like, you know, you hide away within or on or both a chair, kind of a chair. And well, you know, okay, these are not to be mass produced, but they are food for thought, and also food for the eye, and food for the imagination, you know. And Gaetano Pesce. San Sebastiano cabinet, 1991. And it is San Sebastiano because we see the nails penetrating the piece. It's a cabinet, yes, from 1991. So this is not a conventional, you know, piece of furniture. Is close to being a sculpture, and it is a sculpture, but it could also function. As you can see, you can actually use some of these shelves. If anyway, these are one of a kind. Seaweed chair, 1991, recycled fabric resin, polyurethane. Again, it's baroque, it's grotesque sometimes. It's but again, they belong to his vision, and his vision is that of an artist, an artist provocateur. Tree lamp, 1992, papier mâché, gouache, and shellac. Architecture. Now we arrive at some architectural proposals, not just built works, but we'll see something built by him too. He didn't build too many buildings. Casa Elastica, 1963. This is a model. Well, it's called Elastica, but actually, if we compare the model with the previous artworks that we saw, we don't really see, at least at the level of looking at it, too much elasticity. Although now we see that those panels or whatever they are, they move, but this is not really very original idea, but the model looks like an artwork, and maybe in that sense it's relevant. Spazio Quadridimensionale, 1965. Well, paradoxically, is rather rigid in these works, early works from the 60s. You see the grid, you see they are rather rationalistic, but he moved out of this. We are going to see other things, but not completely, because I think he manifested his freedom more in art and in some designs, and maybe less in architecture, although he did some interesting works in architecture too. Restoration late Romantic villa, Sorrento, 1973. This is rather interesting, and he anticipated. So when it is done, 1973, so almost half a century later, Ishigami explored this kind of aesthetics almost identically, at least the level from what we see below or underground. But he did this in 1973. Church of Solitude, 1974. An interesting stage design in a way. It's the very title, the Church of Solitude. And also look at the model. If it was built in this way, it would have been quite striking. These are radical works. It wouldn't be easy to find clients for this kind of work, but he accepted himself with what he believed in. Projet for Les Halles, Paris in 1979. It didn't win, and it was not built like this, but I still think his work is provocative and interesting. Also, it's interesting that he was exploring the underground even in this work. Architecturally, but not only architecturally, in his artwork as well. If by underground we mean the darker side of the human psyche. Also, an interesting way of doing a model, very artistic, and again, he remained truthful to his vision. And he submitted the work like this. Chicago Tribune from 1980. This year I launched myself a competition, a post-Anthropocene Tower, because this year there is the centennial of the first Chicago Tribune competition from 1922. This was the second from 1980, when there was a second competition, although not with the purpose of building a building, but to explore other ideas. And this is what he proposed. I find it very interesting, very stimulating for today as well. 1980, can you imagine a tower, medium-sized, so-called skyscraper looking like this? Maybe these are metaphors for what a newspaper stands for, because the Chicago Tribune is a newspaper, and the newspaper strives on scandals and horrors and all kinds of happenings that take place in human life. Vertical Loft, 1982. This is a interesting work. Of course, you wouldn't multiply its being, but Gaetano Pesce, he can be bizarre, it's true, But then what is bizarre? Harvard Shelter, 1985. I guess he arrived to teach there too, but the shelter is rather, tamed. Maybe he couldn't do more than that. Maison des Enfants, the House of Children, 1986. A model, but I think it's nice. And if it was built, it's possible that the children would have liked it. Project for a bank, 1988. This would have been one of the most astonishing banks ever built, if not the most astonishing, but it was not built. But, this is what you get when you allow freedom of expression to the architect, the artist, but it's important to have provocative schemes, that allow you to dream, or even, make you scared. It's okay. It's better to be scared than to be indifferent. Sao Paulo Tower, 1988. Now, of course, the functionalists would protest for many reasons, and some of them good reasons. But this is a man who explored artistically within the field of architecture as well. Now, this one in Japan is probably his most accomplished architectural work. It's a functioning building. It's not a model. It's not an installation. It's a so-called real building, organic building, 1989, in Osaka, Japan, the city where Tadao Ando is king, but he's not the only king. There are other good architects there. But look at this building by Gaetano Pesce, with the red facade, with those containers for plants. It's theatrical. And the Japanese built it just as he wanted. When you are famous, this sort of thing is possible. Now we go to the second architect who is related to this day, November 8th, Alexander Tzonis, a Greek architect who apparently introduced the world to the expression, or the two words, critical regionalism. Kenneth Frampton made these two words famous, but apparently he was the first one who used them. So Alexander Tzonis, born on November 8th, 1937. So he's 2 years or so now older than Gaetano Pesce. Is a Greek-born architect, author, and researcher. He has made contributions to architectural theory, history, and design cognition, bringing together scientific and humanistic approaches in a synthesis. Since 1975, he has been collaborating in most projects with Liane Lefebvre. In 1985, he founded and directed Design Knowledge Systems, DKS, a multidisciplinary research institute for the study of architectural theory and the development of design thinking tools at Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands. Tzonis is known for his work on the classical canon, history of the emergence and development of modern architectural thinking, creative design by analogy, and introducing the idea of critical regionalism. This is the man. Hello, Mr. Tzonis, happy birthday to you. And this is a book he wrote, Classical Architecture, The Poetics of Order, that he published together with his partner, Liane Lefebvre. Here they are, the two of them at a conference or something. And here they are again, I don't know, in a library or somewhere, or maybe at home. So Alexander Tzonis. Liane Lefebvre, his associate in these academic adventures. Here she is. I don't know if they are married or not, but they work together. Tomorrow's seat is lessons from history, playgrounds, and the third ecology. Alexander Tzonis and Liane Lefebvre. Architecture and sustainable design pillar and whatever is a distinguished lecture series. Then here, Clemson University School of Architecture Centennial Symposium, the Architecture of Regionalism in the Age of Globalization. Again, Liane Lefebvre, Alexander Tzonis, and a few other people. Architecture of Regionalism in the Age of Globalization, and they show here work of Benedetta Taliabue in Barcelona, market, peaks and valleys in the flat world. This is the long title of the book, published by Liane Lefebvre and Alexander Tzonis. Then times of creative destruction, and there is such a thing too, shaping buildings and cities in the late 20th century, again, Alexander Tzonis and Liane Lefebvre. Now we go to the third architect, born on November 8th, another Italian, Michele de Lucchi, and with an impressive beard and an intriguing, you know, Rasputin-like photograph of him. An interesting designer architect himself, Michele de Lucchi. Here he is. I like these solitary architects. I mean, you know, Michele de Lucchi built more buildings than Gaetano Pesce, and certainly more than Alexander Tzonis. But you still have a feeling that he is kind of like a, you know, an outsider, although he was, you'll see, he built even for big corporations and so on. But I like these, you know, architects living and working under the moon, as I would like to put it, you know, like, you know, that, I mean, you can tell even from his face that, you know, he's, it's not really, or I don't know. I mean, he obviously has a strong business ability if he collaborated with big companies and built for them. We are going to see. But his appearance is that of an architect on the edge, so to speak. And I particularly like this picture of him, you know, his, I don't know, summer house or his house in, you know, the outskirts of a city. You know, I mean, how many architects, you know, in, you know, accomplished architects, and he's very accomplished, you are going to see, would take such pictures of themselves as he does, as he did, and as he does. Michele de Lucchi, born on November 8th in 1951, is an Italian architect and designer. De Lucchi was born in 1951 in Ferrara and graduated in architecture from Florence. During the period of radical and experimental architecture, he was a prominent figure in movements such as Cavar, Studio Alchimia, and Memphis. I like this, you know, the fact that there are movements. I mean, these people explore things, you know, although somebody told me that in Florence, they were dwarfed by the incredible cultural history of that city. But it's not quite like this, you know, they had all kinds of movements and groups even acting on, you know, in the front line of the avant-garde. And that's how they are alive. That's how they, create new things. The Lucchi has designed lamps and furniture for well-known Italian and European companies, such as Artemide, Olivetti, alias Unifor, Hermes, and Alessi. I mean, you can imagine the prices for these lamps because, and furniture. I mean, these companies produce beautiful things, but extremely expensive. For Olivetti, he was director of design from 1988 to 2002, so for 14 years, and developed experimental projects for Compaq Computers, Philips, Siemens, and Vitra. During this period, he developed a number of theories on the evolution of workplaces. He has designed and restored buildings in Japan, in Germany, Switzerland for Novartis anyway, and in Italy for Enel, Olivetti, Piaggio, Poste Italiane, and Telecom Italia. As you see, he worked for some giants, in business. In 1999, he was, appointed to renovate a number of Enel, the Italian electricity company, which can be found in Romania, 2 power plants. For Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bundesbahn, Enel, Poste Italian, anyway, Telecom Italia, Hera, Intesa, San Paolo, and other Italian and foreign banks. He collaborated on the development of corporate image, introducing technical and aesthetic innovation into the workplace. Some drawings of Mr. De Lucchi. The drawings are a little bit misleading, particularly this kind of drawings, because they are, they express a certain joie de vivre, which is a little bit different from what this sketch, for example, evokes. But he has, just like Gaetano Pesce, maybe people born on November 9th, especially in Italy, on November 8th, they have this, rather pop playfulness about them. I don't know. Michele De Lucchi. But there is playfulness, there is color. Well, here there is something else, but anyway. It's interesting that an exotic man like him, and with this kind of drawings, made it to collaborate with those big companies. I mean, this kind of sketch wouldn't make one imagine that they would be mass produced and, realized, but he did. Here he is again. I guess he's some kind of a pragmatic dreamer, if I am to express myself in this way. Architecture. Il Tronco office building in Germany, 2009-2012. Here it is. I mean, after seeing those sketches, you wouldn't really expect that he would be able to build, but as you can see, he did build quite convincingly. And the building is solid, so to speak. I mean, it has here, this surface, which seems to problematize a little bit the geometry of the building, but otherwise is a, corporate building, an office building. Michele De Lucchi. Earth stations. Now, this is a so-called visionary project where he imagined wild things, like as if the Earth was Mars or the Moon. But so he thought of these structures to be built on the Earth. Earth stations are active architectures that form networks which are easy to reach and are built in places that form or regenerate urban and infrastructural nodes. They respond to our evolving lifestyles where artificial intelligence increasingly frees men from bureaucratic and repetitive tasks, more like a wishful thinking, establishing an opportunity to create places that express personal freedom and harness the enormous potential of technology. They are designed to respect our environment, and by definition, everything that happens inside continues to impact their evolution and adaptation. They are organized to promote walking and casual encounters, which is the best method of creating ideas and interaction. I agree, casual encounters are immensely important. They are places that dissolve traditional notions of ownership and instead help spread shared and circular economies. They come from exploring humanistic qualities in architecture, which are influenced by atmospheric and sensorial experiences rather than purely the formal or visual definition of space. They promote a continuous stream of mobility and communication that inspire formal and informal events supported by workshops and technologies for new forms of expression and production. I'm not going to read too much reading, but a lot of words about something that was rather capriciously, arrived at. I mean, these are the dreams of an architect who likes to dream. And, he didn't use the word dream, but anyway, they were not built. But it's important that, an architect who also built a number of buildings, he also so-called found time to explore new ideas, some of them, utopian. A mountain station perched on top of a monolithic natural form. The mountain station creates a dynamic space arrived at by a cable car from below. Now here, it's not a mountain station, it's simply New York City. And he imagined, growth of a city, which is already too big, in this way. Again, he explored ideas. It's okay. The floating station is a raft anchored near a coastal city, New York City in this case, where work and social connections arise through the idea of human diversity and the dynamics of exchange. The floating station is a market of ideas. Now look at this one. It's a little threatening, to say the least, but this architect explores things that the rational mind and the functionalist mentality wouldn't generate at all. The Crown Station. The Crown Station is a double bridge whose regal form, or royal regal form and commanding position express a sense of triumph and intellect. Does it? Its oval plan not only connects adjacent cliffs, but also provides alternative inner paths around groups of event and study spaces. As a metaphorical bridge, it houses a printed and digital library, allowing you to connect your own ideas to those of others. The Crown Station is an evolution of the library. So here it is. Maybe we are too serious for this kind of work. Here, look at those highways. Totally mad. The city station, surrounded by major transit roads, the city station is composed of a ring of craft and digital laboratories in which to experiment, innovate, and display different production philosophies and techniques. So again, we are dealing with an architect who probably even out of anxiety or disappointments or in conflict with society and his time, although he wasn't successful. But he imagined things that nobody asked him to imagine. Look at these deadly parking lots, and they are deadly everywhere in the world. The cloud station is an atmospheric architecture that offers a complete contrast with the surrounding vehicle-defined landscape. Indeed, the parking. It has a billowing and organic composition of soft roofs which can be programmed to create a variety of internal settings and micro ambiances. The cloud station is for the exhibition of creative works. Some kind of a, new medievalism somehow. It's a citadel that he proposed here. Unicredit, now we come down to earth, so to speak. Unicredit Pavilion in Milano. This is a building built in Milano and a so-called real building as opposed to what he did before. It's okay, but it's not so spectacular. I mean, we had seen things like this. It's not something that takes us by surprise, but it shows he is quite capable to build and to assume the functions of a building and the rigors and the restrictions and the troubles even of a built work or buildable work. So yes, he's a dreamer. Yes, he can conceive utopias, but he can also assume the time he lives in and build. Why does he do both? Because I think it's in the nature of an architect to explore new things. And if you are not commissioned, you explore them through models, through drawings, through projects that you submit to society, and then you see if the society accepts them or not. In the meantime, you also build for society as society wants you to build. Look at this technical drawing. Is exquisite, at least visually looking at it. I don't think he worked alone on such a project. Yes, his office, but you saw the creator in his sort, rather modest and romantic surroundings, private surroundings, that is. Michele de Lucchi in Milan. Now, what is this? Use salvaged wood for hotel buildings in South Tyrol, in Austria. Here, he even, collaborated, so to speak, with tradition. And you see this mixture between, his vision and, the local way of building. They're rather interesting exactly because of the ambivalence and the hybridity, the buildings. A little more difficult to evaluate because of this duality. Good work, woodwork, but I kind of feel sorry for all this wood, which meant cutting down trees. So this project is in Austria. I mean, they are, not very large buildings, but they are built for the glory of the human being, for anthropos. And again, I'm sorry for the trees. Law court in Batum, Georgia, 2009, 2011, as I said 2 weeks ago or so, Georgia was investing in architecture from creative architects, and I'm not so sure that this building is it's a law court, so but it's, I don't know, it's a phallic building that I personally wouldn't feel very tempted to have a judicial problem resolved in this building. That's what he built. I guess that vertical thing is expressing the power of authority, but the power of authority in a country with a lot of corruption, and in any country would, for example, Jean Nouvel built not a very dissimilar building for the police headquarters in Belgium. So anyway, I find it a little bit strange, but so this is in Georgia, Michele de Lucchi. Now a pavilion at Expo Milano, 2015, 7 years ago, in Tessa, San Paolo pavilion. For my taste, this building is more acceptable, and it's more than acceptable. I think it's an okay building. The initial sketch for the building, and from that sketch, he arrived at this. Milan is famous for its exhibitions, of course, and Michele de Lucchi contributed himself. But as you can see, the drawings are done with a pen or with a pencil, rather modestly, conceptual drawings, but also sensitive in a way. And it got built. Is he a happy architect? This question just came to my mind. I don't know. Looking at his work and also a few photographs with him, I would say that he knows something also about the troubled nature of humankind, and somehow I see a duality in his works as well, just like in the case of Gaetano Pesce. But this building is well done and well built, and for a big exhibition pavilion, I think it is more than okay. It's a good building. Okay, let's see what he did here together with some students. It's a market, and I would say it's not bad. And I'm thinking of I don't know why I'm thinking of Francis Carey now, but what he did in the United States, in California, I think this is you know. I guess I could use such words. It's a decent work. This is, you know, it has variety. It has, again, a lot of wood, but what can we do? Well, we could to abstain from building so much. Il Centro Shopping Mall, again, architetto Michele De Lucchi. Here it is, a big shopping mall because as Rem Koolhaas said, he called shopping the terminal of all human activity. Well, it's kind of true. But it's a good building, but look at it, it's huge. Destination or function, shopping. As Barbara Kruger said, I shop, therefore I am. As opposed to Descartes, who said, I think, therefore I am. No, I shop, therefore I am. That's it. I mean, you know, this triumphal thing here is rather ridiculous. You know, look at the size of human beings, and what is this triumphalism used for? What is its meaning and what is its function? You know, it's I would dispute it. You know, I mean, look at the car. It's a giant space celebrating what? And here we are celebrating the same, you know, unending opulence, which is destroying the world. But now we are in trouble, but still the opulence manifests itself. And I don't see ourselves getting rid of it. You know, shopping, shopping, and shopping again. Yes, it's pleasant, but we are depleting the earth. We are exhausting the earth. And the architect is contributing to this significantly. Look at this, you know, it's immense. And anyway, shopping mall. We love malls, don't we? So designs, some designs. I don't know. I mean, I guess, you know, Memphis like a way, and we see almost the same lamp that Gaetano Pesce used. I find them rather ridiculous, these things, but these are very much in the spirit of Memphis. But it's also rather tired and tiring postmodernism in them. I'm not seduced by this. This chair is not bad, actually, this Michele De Lucchi chair from 2001. But what we see here, you know, is of course, you can do a chair in countless ways. But what is good, I think, is although I see the limits of that too, when there is too much freedom, problems could arise too, you know, because in conditions of too much freedom, sometimes the architect or the designer gets lost in his, you know, dreams and all kinds of monsters could come into being, could happen too. I mean, even this chair is not, I would say it's only half serious. This one is a little bit better, but maybe it's the conventional me that talks now. I don't know. But there is a sense of questioning and even a fragility and even a instability in the work of Michele de Lucchi. Okay, and now we go to the last architect we'll talk about today. Actually, he was not an architect. He was an engineer who founded l'Architecture d'aujourd'hui, but also built a few interesting things. And he's also connected with the day of today. So André Bloch, 1896, 1966, he died in a car accident. And he was the founder of this famous French architecture journal, l'Architecture d'aujourd'hui. See, 1930 in November, actually. And he also built such buildings, which are more like sculptures or inhabitable sculptures, but we are going to see a few more pictures in detail. They're interesting, and he was a great catalyst. When he died, many important architects paid homage to him. Look at this. You know, he built it. It's a sculptural architecture or an architectural sculpture. It's a sculpture that can be inhabited to an extent, but I like it. I wouldn't mind at all to live here. And it's tectonic, it's heavy, it's sinuous, it's labyrinthical. And the man, again, was trained as an engineer. But he loved architecture, he worked for architecture, he built a few things like this. Most architects would stay away from this kind of building, but he was true to himself and to his vision, and he was able to implement a few things. Casa del Laberinto, André Bloch and Claude Parrot. I don't know where this was built, maybe in Greece or somewhere, you know, the Mediterranean Sea. Anyway, it's an interesting house. André Bloch and Claude Parrot. Claude Parrot was an architect. André Bloch wasn't, but you know, he was very involved because of his passion for architecture. And not just passion, but also knowledge. And, you know, this engineer created one of the most important architectural magazines ever published. And I read that he was truly a very inspiring force, a true catalyst. Now, look at the plan of the house. Certainly not done with the T-square and the rectangle. Free form in Spain. Le sculture abitacolo di André Bloch, the inhabitable sculptures of André Bloch. Yes, they are sculptures, but they could also, because they have an interior space, they could also, you know, accommodate some kind of a, you know, life within. And yes, it looks like a stage design from a film, from a movie, but it makes you think, and I also think it's stimulating, you know, to enter into such a inhabitable sculpture as André Bloch built. Now here we see a so-called real building that he built together with an architect, Latour, the tower in Meudon. Ah, no, sorry, it's not this one. We are going to see that one too. This is another work that he did alone. And again, we cannot debate about its sculptural force and visual interest. André Bloch. I think sculpturalness does help a building. You know, it makes architecture more engaging, more interesting. But I would still say that architecture is a little bit different from sculpture. So I don't totally agree with Brâncuș, who said architecture is an inhabitable sculpture. No, it's architecture has its own specificity, but it is helped by sculpturalness, and they are connected as plastic arts. Now, he probably lived comfortably in Paris and not in one of his sculptures. Now, this is the building I thought I arrived at. Is the last work I think I show by André Bloch. He worked with Etienne Martin in Angers, and is connected with what we saw previously by him. But this is an apartment building, and I guess he needed to associate himself with an architect. I like more the individual units, the individual houses than this one. This one is a little bit, has an air of fairy tale architecture, which I am a little bit hesitant to applaud. But he tried something. That's it. So let's wish happy birthday to these 4 architects. And thank you for being here today.